I was very tired. I was burnt out. I didn't have a lot of excitement for my job. So I quit. I decided to begin exploring on my own. And I had all of these problems in mind. I had these paths that I could take, and I didn't really know what they were or where they were going to lead me, but I had questions. I had desires to solve these problems that had been causing me to burn out at my job. The way that I've been doing this is by looking ahead to see where would I like to be in 1 week. And then I write a story on how I can go from where I currently am to where I would like to be. Over the course of the week, I live that path and I try to end up in that place. But very often I realize that where I thought I was supposed to go is not actually where I was supposed to go. Hi, my name is Callum, also known as Wanderloots, and this is the first video in a series of practice videos that I'm creating as part of a course that I'm taking with Moore. The other day I tried to do what was actually my first video, and it didn't go very well. I was kind of uncomfortable. I didn't really know how to speak to the camera, and I felt a lot of pressure to get it right the first time. I was trying to take one of my newsletters, my first newsletter, and convert it into a video format that would be more accessible to more people. And I realized with some reflection and after talking to my partner, Taylor, that I was trying to add too much structure and too much format to something that I was intending to be a little more creative and a little more fluid. I wanted something that would allow me to just go with the flow and express myself in a more natural way, natural self-expression. Instead of trying to start with that first entry, that newsletter conversion, something that I had been building up a little bit in my head as having a particular format and a particular style and a very specific output, I decided to take Sorel's advice and practice speaking to the camera a little bit more. The goal of this series is for me to practice a little bit every day so that I can get a little more comfortable speaking to the camera and hopefully express a little bit more of the value that I've been generating over the past 4 months since I quit my job as a lawyer. I think a large part of that value comes from my ability to explain very complicated topics, to express my understanding as I understand it now to you, the viewer, but perhaps even more importantly, to future me. The whole point of this recalibrating experiment, which is the name of my newsletter, Recalibrating, is to take a look at where I am, take a look at where I was, and take a look at where I would like to be, and use those 3 versions of myself to better create a course into my future, a clearer path than perhaps I would have originally thought. And I think we often in life feel as though we really need to have one particular path, and the closer we stick to that path, the better our life is going to be. But the problem is when we veer a little bit off that path and something takes us a little bit off course, we don't really know how to deal with that change. So a lot of what I've been researching as part of recalibrating is how to deal with change. And I think the only way to really deal with change is to recognize that change happens over time. If I'm trying to figure out what that proper path is, the proper path, the only way I can really figure out how to structure my journey forward is by taking a look backwards to see where I've come, to see what worked and what didn't work. Then I can take that information, that data that I have generated of my past self, the reflection of who I was and where I am now, and the path that took me here. I can use that data to structure information that I can then use to plot my course forward. I can recalibrate the path that I am going to take moving forward based on the path that I've already taken. After reflecting today and yesterday on why I felt so stressed speaking to the camera, I came to terms with the fact that I was trying to add too much structure to the creative process. I was taking my job as a lawyer and a patent agent and an engineer, typically very structured jobs, very logic-based, and I was trying to apply that same conformity to my creative process. And that just wasn't working for me. It caused me to feel the same type of stress that I felt in the past. That's everything that I was trying to get away from. So today I went down to the water, I took some time to relax, I just watched the waves, and I thought about how impermanent they are. The wave appears and the wave disappears. And there's a structure to it in the sense that the wave forms, but there's also no structure in the sense that it almost immediately disappears again. And in a way, I think that structure and then destruction, and structure creation and then destruction, is all part of the creative process that I've been trying to generate. I'm trying to create a new form of expression of myself, natural self-expression, something that's a little bit more in tune with not just myself as a particular person, because there are so many parts of me, but as something that just naturally flows through me. I think intuition is one of our most human traits, and it's a topic that I've been exploring a lot over the last 4 to 5 months. And I think in the age of AI, intuition is going to become even more important than ever before. The problem with my previous intuition is that I had been training it based on only one tiny little portion of myself. I had been training it on my lawyer self and my patent agent self, and a bit of my engineer self, though that had fallen away to the side. And I wasn't really letting myself express creatively with my artistic self. And over the past 20 weeks, I've really started to come to terms with the fact that I have so many different versions of myself, and trying to put myself into a specific box is just the worst thing for me, because it doesn't allow me to naturally express myself in a way that I really value. I was playing along to someone else's expectations, and it just felt out of tune. It felt discordant. And by listening to that noise for so long, I had begun to lose the signal of myself. It became hard for me to hear the tune of who I was over top of the noise that everyone else was making. So with this recalibrating experiment, I took a step back, I let myself recover from burnout, I let myself just explore and move forward, and tried to not put as much pressure on myself as I had at my previous job, tried to not take on the pressure of other people, so that I could create a course for myself. I could choose a path forward that was more in harmony with my own selves. While I was sitting down by the water, watching the waves form and unform, flow and cease to exist, I decided to listen back to one of the voice notes I had created to myself on the first day of my recalibrating experiment 20 weeks ago. Today is the first Monday after I quit my corporate job of working as an intellectual property lawyer and patent agent. This is my first, I guess, day of freedom. It was very interesting to hear the way that I was phrasing the different problems that I was facing. I was very tired, I was burnt out, I didn't have a lot of excitement for my job, so I quit, and I decided to begin exploring on my own. And I had all of these problems in mind. I had these paths that I could take, and I didn't really know what they were or where they were going to lead me, but I had questions. I had desires to solve these problems that had been causing me to burn out at my job. And listening to this voice note from 20 weeks ago, my past self, it was very interesting to hear that I actually still have a lot of the same problems that I was exploring all that time ago. And I realized that I think the problems of our lives are kind of like the waves in the lake or in the ocean. They appear and we get more clarity, there's more structure to them, and I have a bit of a deeper understanding of what that format is. But then, over time, the wave disappears and it forms some other problem somewhere else, some other path to take. And as part of my recalibrating experiment, I've been trying to figure out ways that I can identify those waves, those paths for me to take, and express myself through that particular structure while I have that intuitive understanding, and before I lose it, before it ceases to exist and goes back into the body of water that it came from. A big problem that I face is that I overthink a lot. My brain is just constantly going, and I'm always trying to solve new problems. I'm always coming up with new ideas and trying to link those problems together. And I think when the idea meets the problem, there's an impact, there's a generation of energy, kind of like the wave coming into existence. And I have been overthinking the capturing of those waves. I've been focusing very much on note-taking and how to put that into the written word. I've been exploring it through my newsletter, where I take all of these ideas and I put them into more of a structured hierarchy, more of a fluid story that I can then explain to other people what I've been looking into. But I realized that there's another step, and that step is not just sitting there and thinking about it, not just writing it out for other people, but to directly express this in the moment as I'm feeling it, to shorten the distance between the idea and the execution of the idea. The faster I can come up with the execution for the idea that I'm generating in my mind, the less I have time to overthink what I'm going to actually do. The main problem that I had identified 20 weeks ago was that I wanted to have a more consistent creative outlet for myself, where I could take in information and express it very quickly. I wanted to be able to use my voice to capture the essence of my ideas and then use some type of AI system to structure that information into a way that would be valuable for my future self and be valuable for other people while publishing it. I wanted to shorten the distance between the idea and the execution. I wanted to shorten the time between the idea and the execution being the sharing with other people. And in a very classic Callum form, I realize now, in hindsight, that I have been very much overthinking this process. I have been overthinking what it means to capture the essence of my idea and express it. So I have now decided to speak directly to the camera. I have decided to share my thoughts as they come into being with the world, so that I can shorten that time between having the idea, generating that value in my own mind, and expressing it to other people so I can give that value away as quickly as possible. As an intellectual property lawyer, a patent agent, an engineer, an artist, a photographer, a philosopher, a reader, I have so many different aspects of myself that have allowed me to develop different languages to translate complex ideas and explain them to other people. As a patent agent, that was my primary purpose. I would listen to inventors come up with their ideas, and usually it was a bit confused. They had an idea of what it was they had captured, what they had created, but they didn't exactly know how to express it. And that's where I came in. I would help them work through their system, work through their ideas, and come up with the core, the essence of what their idea was, where all of the primary value was held, and then how the rest of the ideas just created concentric circles, like ripples away from that original idea. And to be honest, I'm very good at that. I can take in a lot of information very quickly, and I can understand it. I can understand complex concepts very, very fast, and I'm able to ingest that information and express it as knowledge to other people very quickly. But I have realized I can do this a lot better in conversation than I can do this on my own, speaking to the camera. I like to be prompted by other people. I like to figure out what their awareness level is, so that if they're at awareness level 0, I can bring them up to level 1. If they're at 1, I can bring them to level 2. If they're at 2, 3 to 4, etc. But the difficulty I'm facing is when I'm speaking directly to the camera, there's no one there prompting me. I have to prompt myself. I have to generate the concepts that I would like to convey to other people, the language that I would like to translate, the idea I would like to express, and I have to just share it directly with you, with future me. While I do have particular topics and particular subjects that I want to hit, particular concepts that I have determined are very valuable, especially in an ever-changing world, especially in a world that is going to increasingly be exposed to artificial intelligence and going to be disrupted by it. I want to figure out how I can express these concepts so that you can understand as quickly as possible the changes that are happening, so that you can, as quickly as possible, move from your ideas to your execution. And artificial intelligence is by far the best tool we have ever come up with to shorten that time, to shorten the effort between the idea and the execution. But I also want to keep in mind that I don't want to slip back into my former habits. I don't want to slip back into trying to do things for other people based on their expectations. I want to figure out a way that works best for me as an individual, that takes into account all of my different selves, or a particular self at one moment, and is able to express this self in a way that I find valuable, that you find valuable, and hopefully that the world at large finds valuable. And a key aspect to this is that I do not want to burn out, because being burnt out was one of the worst experiences of my life. It's brain fog, it's exhaustion, it's apathy, it's not caring about yourself or other people. It's just doing things over and over and over in loops that bring no value. At least that's how I perceived it. And I want to figure out how to come up with this system of natural self-expression, this creative conversion of my thoughts and ideas into something of value that I can express online and share with other people. So there are going to be a few different ways that I do that. One is through my weekly newsletter, which there are already 21 entries out at this time. So you're able to go back and read through and get an understanding of where I'm at now and where I came from, if you would like. There's going to be this video series where I'm taking the lessons and the information and the knowledge that I have gained through writing that newsletter series over the last 20 weeks and converting them into a video format so that it's a little bit more accessible. There's going to be a podcast where I take the audio of both my read-alouds of my newsletter and the audio extracted from the videos themselves. And who knows? There's going to be a few different ways that I want to do this. As part of my practice of improving my ability to communicate, to share my personality, to share my knowledge in the most effective way, I also want to read books. I think books are stepping into the vision of someone else's worldview and taking in the story of their lives and their experiences and their knowledge. And it's one of the most valuable ways that we have to develop ourselves as humans, by looking to the people that have come before us and stepping on the stones that they have already built so that we can go further ahead and faster than ever before with the wisdom that they have also gained. And I think wisdom is a vastly underrated concept when it comes to moving forward in life. We often just move without thinking, or in my case, sit there and overthink instead of just moving forward and taking action. And I realized that all of this, everything that I've just described, is a part of my desire to embrace the more creative side of myself, to not just go with what society has told me is valuable from the logic perspective and the corporate conformity, but to embrace the artist in myself and figure out how that balances with the logical aspects of what I like to do. So with that concept in mind of trying to understand creativity a little bit more, a core aspect, I think, of what it means to be human, I'm going to listen to The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, an audiobook that I have purchased, and I'm going to provide real-time feedback to myself as I listen to each chapter. The goal of this is to go back to what I was talking about earlier and shortening the distance, the time between idea and execution. If I have an epiphany listening to this book, which I've heard is quite excellent, I want to be able to express that epiphany and capture the essence of it without having to sit at a computer and type up my notes, because that's not honestly very good for my ergonomic situation, and I don't think it's really what humans were meant to do. We are communicators. We like to use voice to tell story. And I want to get better at using my voice to tell my story, but also to translate the stories of so many other people so that hopefully I can recall this information better myself, I can hold on to this wisdom, and you can learn from what I'm learning. I think that in the current age of AI, we're just at the cusp of learning becoming even more valuable than it already has in our knowledge worker economy. Learning is going to be the best skill that you can ever develop in your life because it is the skill that lets you learn new skills. I think that our education system has dampened our desire to learn. We're used to thinking about things in a boring way where we're stuck in that constraint, we're put in that box where we just sit and get spoken at instead of learning in our particular style, which varies from person to person. So I hope as a part of this series, I'm better able to improve how I learn, to embrace the different styles of learning that perhaps I've left in the past based on my burnout from working at a corporation that I didn't really love, doing tasks that just drained me instead of rejuvenated me. And that's what I really want to do with this recalibrating experiment. I want to take in the information, check what worked and what didn't work, drop what didn't work and embrace what did work and recalibrate over and over and over. The way that I've been doing this is by looking ahead to see where would I like to be in 1 week. And then I write a story on how I can go from where I currently am to where I would like to be. Over the course of the week, I live that path and I try to end up in that place. But very often I realize that where I thought I was supposed to go is not actually where I was supposed to go. It's close, I was pointed in the right direction, but I needed to shift just a little bit one way or another. And each week I can map those shifts over time and start to figure out what is the path that I'm actually meant to walk. In a sense, it's learning about myself, which is often referred to as metacognition. It's a topic I'll get into in another video. But for now, let's see how the creative act goes. Let's see what information I'm able to pick up from Rick Rubin and how I'm able to recalibrate what I envision as my creative act, as my creative process, to shorten the distance between the idea and the execution so that I can keep up with all of the information that seems to be increasing every day.